What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about 2025 video games and just how excited I am for that year. Now, look, we're in the midst of 2024. It's been a great year so far, but it's cooling down a little bit. And while we have this kind of gap in the schedule, I thought, well, it's time to look forward to games in 2024. But it's also time to, in my opinion, put it in a little bit of perspective how big next year could be. I've long said that I think this year, at least to start, was both quality and quantity. But as this year goes on, I feel like the quantity part is actually going to drop. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I have many games in my backlog. I have my whole retrospective channel, so I'm always playing old games. That's totally fine. I don't need a game every week. But when you look at 2025, I think it is going to be just dominant. You're going to have some of the biggest games that you've ever seen, and they should at least, right, be very, very high quality. So I want to I wrote these down. I just went on Wikipedia, went on Game Informer. I try to look at, upcoming years and try to project also my own opinion of what I think games will release next year. I just want to read you off a short little list here, which is not actually all that short, to put in perspective how big next year will be. And this is assuming, by the way, that actually a lot of games still make it this year. This is assuming that Dragon Ball Z does not come out next year, or Silent Hill, or Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake, right? This is assuming a lot of those games, or Dragon Age, that they actually make it now versus next year. So let me just rifle these off for you, okay? Death Stranding 2. Now, that one is supposed to actually be confirmed for next year, right? Ghost of Tsushima 2. That's my opinion one, but I think I'm going to be right there. GTA 6, obviously, we all know about that one, right? Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra. Monster Hunter Wilds. Resident Evil 9. Again, that's a personal opinion one. Professor Layton and the New World of Steam. Control 2 and or the Max Payne remake. I think you're going to get at least one of those next year, and potentially, in best case scenario, you would get both. The Wonder Woman game. Now, that's wishful thinking, but I do think it's going to come out at some point in our lives, so next year seems like an okay bet. Kingdom Hearts 4, that's again me kind of going off the deep end, but I think it's possible. Persona 6, I think that one is actually more likely than some people believe. And I also just wrote down the Switch 2. I tend to forget about the good old Nintendo Switch 2. With the Switch 2 coming out next year, you would also have a wave of games that we probably don't even know. Now, like Professor Layton obviously would be one, right? But you think, like, we haven't had a new Mario Kart game in a very, very long time. To get a legitimate Mario Kart game would be gigantic, plus whatever else in God's name that they have cooking, right? So just that. Now, there are plenty of games that could just reveal themselves. Summer Game Fest, Game Awards, Gamescom, the Sony or PlayStation Showcase, the Xbox event, Ubisoft Forward, right? I mean, you can just keep rifling this off. And this is why, by the way, I enjoy games. I enjoy covering games because the potential is kind of endless, right? But honestly, no, I mean, just putting that in perspective, right? Death Stranding 2 is massive. Ghost of Tsushima 2 is massive. GTA 6 is the game of the generation, most likely. Marvel 1943, that's a bit. I mean, they're all big, right? Monster Hunter, Resident Evil. Now, if those happen, sure. But, Control, Wonder Woman, if that happens. Kingdom Hearts, that's an event. That's a big thing if it happens. Persona. These Persona games are only getting bigger and more popular. And again, that is just my own bubble that I put myself in, that I'm not maybe paying attention to other things out there. I could be missing 10 to 15 other games. And like I said, I think there's room for other games to get announced over the next. Really, games could still come out in 2025 and be announced within the next year and 3-4 months. So you can still have games just stacking over that time. And as I've said before, with 2024, you could say, well, Alex, the difference in them. Look, again, I'm not saying it's a terrible thing, but you look at 2024 and you look at the fall, really, right? You got the games of Avowed and Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed. And maybe, like I said, you have Silent Hill or Dragon Ball or Dragon Age. If you have a couple of those slot in, it's going to be big. I'm not saying there's no games to play in the fall, but the list I just read off to you. Now, I mean, maybe that was 12 to 15 games, even if you put them out, 1 month after another. And I think at the highest end of those games would be bigger. Right? A Ghost of Tsushima 2 is pretty freaking big. And you don't, especially from Sony, you don't have that this year. In fact, you have nothing like that this year, right? GTA would beat, put out the game that you think could beat GTA this year. You know what I mean? And you won't get it. And it's, I guess I am doing this comparison, back and forth. It's not meant in an aggressive way. I think this year so far has been awesome. I mean, I've had a blast with many games this year. There's also been some bad ones. You've had the Skull and Bones and Suicide Squad for every Dragon's Dogma, or for me, like Final Fantasy is my game of the year. So there's been some bad, but there's also been a lot of good, and I think we got a lot of good coming with Stellar Blade and Hellblade. But you look at the next couple months, and it is definitely more barren than I think we're used to in the last couple of years. So I don't know. It's always on my mind. I'm always thinking to the future. I mean, this channel obviously covers games that are coming out, so I am always trying to look ahead. But when you look to 2025, I believe we've had some great years. 2011 growing up was one of my favorite gaming years. There were so many games, specifically in the fall, that released that year that are incredible. But you look back, I mean, actually, because I do a lot of retrospectives, 2009, what I'm finding, could be one of the best years. I think even just in the last couple of years, we've had some pretty solid years. But I think to 2009, especially with me doing like anniversary like things, you had the Infamouses of the world and Prototype, and I mean there was just Dragon Age started that year, Borderlands started that year. There's just a lot of games in 2009. So we've had like incredible years, and then you have some slower years. Overall, I think 2020 was a really good year, right? So I think next year is going to kind of be the best of both, where, and what I said in the beginning really is kind of my main point and it's probably going to be the point that I say over and over the next year. Next year is about quantity. I think there's going to be, if you really want to stack up literally how many games released this year to next year, I think I'd be pretty confident to say next year would have more. But I think it's both. It's quality, because I think these games are going to be, some of them will be on another level. And it's not to say we haven't had games that are really good this year. I think, like I said, Final Fantasy has really made an impact on me. Rebirth, I loved Infinite Wealth. Dragon's Dogma 2 is making an impact. Helldivers took the world by storm. So it's not like we haven't had it, but again, find me a game that can match GTA, and Ghost of Tsushima means a lot to me. So I think next year is going to have a lot of high quality games. And they're actually, if they all line up, and it is a big if, because a lot of these games could be delayed. Maybe Kingdom Hearts 4, Persona 6, right, Wonder Woman, maybe these games don't come out next year. That would bring it down for sure, but there is also, I would say, a large amount of them. So you got the quantity there too. So, I'll be around covering the games of this year, next year, 2026, as long as I'm still around, I'll be covering these games. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments, what games next year you're looking forward to, and chances are I'll be covering it. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all on the next one.